Microphone on. Can you hear me now? Does that work? Let me know if you can hear me now. If not, I'm going to keep on working on that. I just did. Now we can hear you? Oh, okay. Great. All right. Thanks for joining me. Thank you for letting me know. Okay, we'll start again. Hi, I'm Cori. Welcome to the Learning House. I'm a homeschooling mom, and we are here to chat about all your questions about being new to homeschooling. So I hope that you have some questions for us today. Come and tell me where you're joining me from and how old are the people that you're just starting to or considering homeschooling. I'd love to hear about that. It helps to know what province you're in for sure, because there's different regulations and different expectations in different provinces. As you do so, and as we welcome more people, I know that people will sort of join us as we go along. I'll tell you a little bit about me. I'm a homeschooling mom. Hi, I'm Cori. I've been homeschooling for a heck of a long time. We're going into our 24th and last year of homeschooling. My littlest baby is going to be in 12th grade, and she is has been homeschooled all along, and her siblings have all been homeschooled right through from K to 12. My older children, 2 of them are married with children. And 3 of them have finished homeschool. 2 of them finished and went on to university. 1 finished and went on to Bible college and has completed 2 years of Bible college, and doing various things post-secondary, having been homeschooled throughout. So we've lived all the ages and stages, and now we're actually seeing our grandkids come up and preparing. Their mummies are preparing for homeschooling them, and so this has been a great privilege. When we started homeschooling, my sister-in-law was homeschooling. Her oldest was 4 years older than my oldest daughter, and her youngest was 8 days older than my oldest. And so she just was such a great handholder and question answerer and cheerleader along the way. She would lend me a book and say, this one's a great one, you should take a look at this, or here's something we're done with, or why don't you come over and we'll do this project or this activity together. And so that was such a great start for us when we started homeschooling. We just sort of started one day at a time, 1 year at a time, with no intention to really carry this through forever, but to carry it through for now while it worked for us. And it became very much a lifestyle for us. In part, we started homeschooling because we were doing foster care at the time. We did foster care for about 10 years. And we felt like our days and our nights were often mixed up, where other families and other children would go during the day to school and jobs. And during the day, they would have these, they'd learn about bullies and swear words and families that were going through difficult things, whereas we had that happening with many of the kids in our home in the evenings when they came home from school. So homeschooling started off as just core family time to have that peaceful family values time for our little people when they just needed a little bit more of mom and dad in the busy crazy that was our life. So it changed over time. We don't foster anymore. And it just became our lifestyle, became what we really enjoyed in terms of being able to connect as a family, to learn together, to have shared experiences, and to be able to tailor things to what our kids needed, and just to be able to do things differently. So one of the rules in our high school days has always been that you got to do something that you couldn't do otherwise if you were in a regular public school. So my kids have been able to go on mission trips, to school overseas, to stay with friends and family to do their schooling, and things like that, so that we could experience life differently and continue learning. So homeschooling became very much a lifestyle for us and something that we really enjoyed, and I'm going to graduate soon. So we've always loved investing in people who are coming after us. Now, our family now owns the Learning House. We're in Bradford, Ontario. If you haven't heard of that, you're welcome to stop by if you're nearby. And I see a number of you are really close by, so you're welcome to come in and wander around the store. We're open extended hours in in August and September, and we'd love to have you come by. But we know that most people are not able to join us in person because we serve families all across Canada, and so we do send most of our orders out by mail and by courier. So you can find us on learninghouse.ca. One of the things we really value here is people and relationships. And so while we sell books, our main emphasis here at the Learning House is caring for and supporting and resourcing families so that they can do education well. So to that end, we do things like this, Q&A. We have free consultations. Some of the questions you're going to ask today, we can answer. Others might be more personal or one-on-one or take a longer time to answer. And I encourage you, please give me any of your questions now, because it would be so much better if we got through those things that are right on your mind right now, rather than me blathering on. I would really prefer, and what I really love, is those one-on-one chats where we can chat, but we can't always do that, especially in August when we're busy people and I have lots of consultations booked and so on. Our consultations are always free, so I tend to be booked up throughout August and the beginning of September. We do also have other consultants on our team who are experienced homeschool moms who have been there, who can consult with you, and so there's people here that can help you. We'd love to chat with you, but while we're here now, give me your questions. Tell me what it is that we're here to talk about so that we can redeem this time and make sure that it's not something that we don't want to waste the time. I want to make sure that you are well prepared to start your homeschool year. So let me just look back and see. Thank you, Jennifer and Ashley, for joining me and making sure that I'm heard here. So technical things that I am still learning. We have a nice studio here in the store and it's fun to use, but sometimes the wires get crossed. So Jennifer, thanks for joining me from Innisfil, Ontario. You're just starting now with a 5.5-year-old and a nearly 4-year-old. Tell me what kind of decisions and things you've got. Like, are you having sort of open-ended curriculum right now, or have you got a specific curriculum that you're working with? Where are you on that learn to read spectrum, and what other things are a part of your school? What kind of questions do you have about organizing the day and so on with your little people? And Ashley, thanks for joining me. Whoops, it's coming up on my screen. Kids are 9 and 10. So are you just starting to homeschool, or have you been homeschooling for a while, Ashley? I'd love to hear a little bit more. We're in search of a writing curriculum for a very reluctant writer who also has learning difficulties. I would be happy to chat about that a little bit, and keep on bringing any questions and we'll go through them as we go. Hi, Nicole, thanks for joining. Drop your questions in and let us know where, and anyone else who's joining, let us know where you're joining from, how old the kids are that you're just starting to homeschool, or that you're considering homeschooling, or you've been homeschooling for a while, and any questions that you have. Let's talk about writing and reluctant writers. First of all, your kids are 9 and 10, so they still are very emergent writers in this age and stage. When we talk about going through language arts, like the core things that we want for our kids is the 3 R's, reading, writing, and arithmetic. If you think through the ages and stages of learning to read and write and what language arts looks like, writing is kind of an advanced skill. So a 9 and a 10-year-old that are not ready to do a lot of writing yet, that's not surprising, as long as we're seeing progress in other ways. Now, you've talked about someone who has learning difficulties. Those are the things we pay attention to, and we can, if you haven't had formal assessments, one of the things that we want to keep in mind is that what we're looking for is forward progress with well-chosen materials. If we have well-chosen materials that we're using with regularity and we're not seeing forward progress, then that's when we want to react and say, hey, let's call in some extra help. Let's change up the resources, maybe have some assessments, maybe ask for extra outside help and supports. Educational therapy is something that we're very, very much in favor of here at the Learning House, and so on. Um, Varying degrees of, okay, so I'm just checking what you've said here. You're reluctant writer. So I don't know whether he is your 9-year-old or your 10-year-old, but to get to being that 9-year-old, we have to start with our little kindergarten, pre-kindergarten, grade 1 skills, which are I've learned handwriting and I've learned to read. So being in control of moving my pencil, those are some fine motor skills and gross motor skills, being able to move my hands, my arm, to sit properly, to hold my body properly, to be able to connect my eyes with where my hands are going and my thoughts with where my hands want to go. There's a lot of complicated stuff in getting handwriting going. So does he have trouble with handwriting? How is the learn to read process going? So we need to have a good start with the learn to read process, that phonemic awareness, knowing that words have sounds and that letters represent those sounds. Phonics, learning that blending and decoding of words, so I can see that this letter represents that sound and what can I do when I know the code, and I can look that over, decode that word, and blend those sounds together to read. So that's my phonics. And moving from phonics into learning to spell and knowing the rules of spelling and the mechanics of, capitals and punctuation and grammar. And there's so much going on in order to be a writer. So where is he on that spectrum, and what should we be adding? Because what's really typical of the school system is, like in the 80s when I was growing up, the typical thing to do was they had sort of switched from this traditional phonics and grammar style of teaching language arts to whole language learning, where the predominant philosophy was, hey, these little kids learn to speak because we talk to them. So if we read to them, they'll learn to read. And if we tell them to write, then they'll become writers. So will he, so what we do is we, in those whole language learning stuff, is we just throw the spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks. Let's just get them to write. Let's just get them to read. We'll read lots to them. We'll let them soak in that, and they'll become good readers. And for some kids that really works, and other kids, they need something much more sequential and incremental, working through the bits and pieces in smaller stages, and with lots of practice and orderly practice. And that style of learning to read is often described by the Orton-Gillingham methods. So Orton and Gillingham came up with these ideas 100 years ago and said, these are some of the things that will help to make successful readers. So how is he on there, and how is he on spelling? So you're saying he's an avid reader? Great. How is he for spelling? How is he for those hand mechanics? Because we too, when we throw the spaghetti at the wall and we see what sticks, what we tend to expect in a public school system, and we're starting to move away from that, like the whole buzz of the science of reading is that currently there's lots of people with big minds and big brains and big universities with big budgets that have done a bunch of science that basically has brought us to the place where they're saying phonics was a good idea. So we should teach kids phonics, we should teach them handwriting, we should teach this in an orderly, sequential way. So, but the typical expectation in schools now is like, let's have these 6 and 7-year-olds write a journal, and they'll just, they can make up the spelling as they go because we want them to express themselves. And this is good, like we should have them compose, but those skills of being able to move my hands across the paper, being able to think about all the mechanics of like, what's the spelling for this? Where do I put the capital? Where do I put the space? All of those mechanical things, spelling, grammar, syntax. So my motor skills, all the mechanical stuff, and then the composing, like what did I actually want to say? Having those all happen at once can be a really complicated thing. And so for a little guy like this, I'd say, all right, he can read well, but is he ready to move his pencil across the paper? So his handwriting's okay when he tries. It's just a struggle every day to write simple sentences. Are they too long for him? Are they Do we have to work on the posture of our body, the posture of our hands, those fine motor and gross motor skills, in order to conquer the handwriting part? Do we have to work more on the mechanical pieces? And if so, then writing might be about taking those pieces apart right now and saying, you know, you tell me, son, what you'd like to write. I'll write it down and you can copy it. So he has composed and he has written, but he hasn't had to do them at the same time. So yeah, struggling to put his thoughts down on paper, spelling needs some extra practice, but not terrible, is the composition part. So that's the part then that we can focus on. Like, let's say, you tell me, son, what would you like to do next? Oftentimes we're also biting off more than we should chew. We might say to our kids, you know, I want you to write. This is what I was guilty of when my kids were little. I'd say, here's your page for handwriting. Let me know when you're done. And this little one would put, you know, lovely letter A, and then another lovely letter A, and continue. And the first 3 or 4 were really lovely, and it starts getting a little messier, and then the next line is a little messier. And by the time we're at the end of the page, it might not even be legible at all. And so what have we done? We've spent a lot of time handwriting. A little bit of it was neat. Most of it was a practice of messy handwriting. So we got to be able to stop them where they're kind of wowed and wanting more, where we can see this child being challenged but not overcome, like we're not frustrated, we're not overwhelmed, it's not too much. So stop where we're doing well, +1. So if you can write one line of a sentence or a composition, if you can write one sentence well, then let's work on doing a longer sentence or 2 sentences. And so working within that sweet spot of where he learns well. So all of this is like some tips for how to write. Things like keep it short, work within where he's challenged, parse it into smaller pieces, like you can fill in the words that you need to spell, or you can tell me what you want to say and copy it, those kinds of things. But how can we do that formally? If he is got a good start to reading, he's got a good start to spelling, he's got a good start to handwriting, then the next thing that you want to do is to start into that grammar and writing and keep them short and short. So what would engage him? Curriculum wise, we might have a bigger discussion about this, because I might need to hear more about what you like, what your budget is. Do you want videos? Do you not want videos? Essentials in Writing is often a really good curriculum for the reluctant writer, because it only gives us little bite-sized chunks at a time, and it does it really sequentially. So we work through small things like parts of speech, and then sentences, and then paragraphs before doing compositions. And then when we do compositions, we do little bits and pieces of them without saying, here's how you do your composition, go have at it, son. So Essentials in Writing is often a good one for that, but there might be other good options. It has videos, so if you prefer something that doesn't have videos. But I would make sure that whatever you choose, that you do some of those things. Keep the lessons short. Essentials in Writing is what you're currently using. So if it's too much, cut it back, use a lower level, look back to, do we need to work more on spelling? Do we need to work more on handwriting? Do we need to take this by dictation and then copy it so that he's parsing those things out? Or are the videos bogging him down? Are the, do we need something that is, he just doesn't enjoy videos. And we could do something like Winning with Writing. It's not colorful, it's not terribly pretty, but some kids get overwhelmed with the details. And so Winning with Writing is like, here's a page, you're going to do it, and then move on. And we still have those bits and pieces. It's not quite as parsed as Essentials in Writing, but does that help, Ashley? I think we could get kind of forensic about this and not get to any other questions, but tell me if that helps. I want to see here if there's other questions before I spend all my time chatting about that. And you know too that if we need to unpack that some more, we can do that one-on-one. Jennifer, I'm planning on using Ambleside. Yay, Ambleside. We used Ambleside quite a bit. I see Charlotte Mason recommends not using year 1 until the child is 6 years old. My oldest is 5.5, turning 6 on January. We're planning to start in September, and I'm wondering if I should just start him in the year 1 curriculum or if it's better to wait the year. He did go through year 1 of JK last year with the French public school system. Jennifer, I would actually, I wouldn't be so concerned with his age as his readiness. So, are we ready for the level of reading? Because Ambleside does have challenging reading. I know when we started into year 1, some of the stuff was a little bit too challenging. And so my kids were like, I don't like it as much. So there's a lot of good picture books, but then there's also stuff that's a little bit longer. And we had to learn which pieces fit and which didn't. As much as anything as well, learning that narration process, because in a Charlotte Mason education, we start children with narrations, oral narrations, at age 6. And that's the part where, so is the content challenging? Because Ambleside is really about a reading list. You're going to be working through your Learn to Read program separately from that. I know it's been a long time since I used Ambleside. So I know that they have suggested Learn to Read programs, or there are Learn to Read programs, but it's not specifically for learning to read. So you're going to have your own Learn to Read program. You're going to have whatever numbers and mathematics you're going to be doing, and Ambleside fleshes out all of the rest in terms of activities and readings to be done. So talking big picture, in kindergarten grade 1, our most important things are those 3 R's. And actually, if I was kind of filling out what I really think is most appropriate for homeschooling in that kindergarten grade 1 years, I would say there's 5 R's. It really follows a Charlotte Mason style of learning. That is reading, writing, and arithmetic, our math and language arts. Relationships, which is very much that idea that Charlotte Mason has about education is an atmosphere, it is a discipline, it is a life. So that atmosphere part, that love for learning, that relational piece with our family and with others, helping our kids know, hey, we're on our side, we're on your side. We love learning alongside with you, because there's going to be times when it's frustrating and you're going to sit with your kid and say, oh yeah, that's hard. Let's see whether we can do this, or let's take a smaller chunk and try this. Like, I'm on your side, I'm your cheerleader, I'm here behind you. Not you have to sit down and do this and we're against each other, right? Like we can affect the same thing by focusing well on relationships. So reading, writing, and arithmetic and relationships, and the other is routines, or that education is a discipline. Getting our kids into good patterns, helping them to learn life skills and character development that is really important at this stage. Things like when mommy says we're going to sit down and do a lesson, you got to sit down and do the lesson. When mommy says you're done, trust me, I'm going to try not to keep you here longer than you can handle doing it. And we're going to challenge you to do hard things. That we're going to try and get into that rhythm of regularly having lessons that are appropriate, whether that's Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or we're ready for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday lessons, whether they're 5 minutes long, or they're 20 minutes long, or they're 40 minutes long, and so on. So Jennifer, you said, yes, you've started with Teach Your Child to Read and 100 Easy Lessons, but we're moving slowly with it. Perfect. Go slowly. The one thing that I will hear parents say is that they went too fast and they didn't catch it all. If you're not catching enough with that, slow down, add lots of those hands-on, visual, auditory, kinesthetic, tactile bits and pieces to make sure that we get those ideas, or move into something that gives you enough with that. It's okay to take your time doing that, because what we're looking for is forward progress, not looking to see every child accomplishing the same thing in kindergarten or first grade. So you've got your Learn to Read program, you've got whatever letter or numbers program or maths that you're going to work on. And then the Ambleside part is it catching our interest yet? Are we ready for this level of reading? And you can test that by doing something like, we're going to read the first page or the first chapter of this. And if it doesn't engage, you see, hey, this kid's just not catching on yet, and they're not enjoying it, set it aside. It's okay. Life is too short for boring books. There's a lot of good stuff. And then the other piece is the narration piece. So the input and the output of this Charlotte Mason engine of education is good books and narrations. And just always keep in mind that at 5.5, 6 years old, a couple of things. You can't keep your kids from narrating, right? Like, tell me of a kid who doesn't go to a birthday party or watch a Disney movie without telling you over and over all the details about it. Our kids tell back what they know. So when we are, and we'll talk about math, sure. When we are doing a Charlotte Mason style narration, one thing, like I said with handwriting, is that we will often err on the side of too much. So sometimes we can feel bogged down by books and narration because we're expecting too much. Like, I read you a page, I read you a chapter, tell me back. And a 5.5 or 6-year-old might not be ready to do that. So tell me back this sentence or these few sentences or this paragraph. And if you enjoy the content and we're ready for sitting through that content and we can narrate in short little bits, then go for it. Year 1 is perfect. If not, hold back. They have a great list of early picture books and readers that you could do before we get into those formal lessons as well. And you can pick and choose a little bit of both too, if you want. Starting early means that you can slowly go your way through year 1 as well, because it does take time to get into that habit and so on. Maths that suit a Charlotte Mason style of learning, and I'll just throw out a few, and it might be that we have a little bit more of a chat about who these children are and what would suit you. Life of Fred math, very much a story-based math. Probably start it in 1st grade, so I wouldn't worry about rushing through it. It can be light, and so might be something that you'd read through and do a couple of times, or that you start something else with and add that in later, or that you work on the Life of Fred while also practicing other basic skills, drills and stuff like that. It's very story-based. So easy to add like extra practice problems to stories, because those stories engage and they really solidify that knowledge by kind of entertaining us and drawing us in. But Life of Fred is more of a light curriculum, as Charlotte Mason curriculums will be in those early years. Math Lessons for a Living Education is a very good one, because it also has those short stories, but it's got colorful pages and day-by-day lesson plans, or lessons, not a teacher book to plan it through. If you want something more hands-on, Right Start Math is like the Cadillac of playing games and doing activities. Really, in a Charlotte Mason style education, we want to have children to have regular practice at those basic skills, and we want them to have it in a very experiential way, whether that's a story-based style or a manipulative-based hands-on activity style. Charlotte Mason talked about things like learning to read and mathematics as being the gymnastics of the mind, meaning we have to build these skills by repetitive exercise of these muscles. So those are a couple of ideas. Right Start Math, Math Lessons for a Living Education, Life of Fred Math. They're all very different, and they're not the only ones. Some Charlotte Mason families like Singapore, much more open and go and very rigorous. They might like Math with Confidence, which is similar to Right Start Math, but without a big bucket of manipulatives. You might like Apologia Math. It starts at 1st grade, very colorful, engaging Christian content. There's quite a few. There's quite a few good options, and I don't know that I hope to narrow it down. Okay, more questions. Let me know if you have more questions, because again, I appreciate the ability to chat into things a little bit more in depth, but I don't want you to go away and feel like your questions can't be answered. And Nicole, if you're still here, I'd love to hear your questions as well, and to be able to chat through some of these things. As you're typing, one of the things I should let you know is that we do have a Homeschooling for Newbies course at the store. If that's useful for you, great. It's just a streaming course. You can go on learninghouse.ca, type in Homeschooling for Newbies. We go through things like, how do I organize my day? Is this really legal? Can I really do this? What kind of things do I need to have in my regular learning? How do I choose curriculum? And all those kind of questions that are just kind of overwhelming your brain as you start out. We tried to work through those in this video-based learning course. If that's helpful to you, great. If not, then that's all right too. You can certainly call us for consultation, join us for the next Q&As that are coming up, and so on. One of the things that that I had a mom ask me recently was about what's reasonable in terms of timing for homeschooling. And let me address this again while you guys give me any questions that you have. And I'm not going to keep you longer than needed if you don't have any questions. So, but let me just address this one because it's come up quite a bit lately, and it's a very relevant question. So I was talking to a mom recently, and she said, you know, I was listening to a talk at a homeschool conference, and one of the things it said is that you should be able to finish your kindergarten learning in the morning. You know, shouldn't take more than a few hours, and that should be your kindergarten day. So she was feeling kind of overwhelmed because she was like, hey, this little guy doesn't sit still for like 5 minutes. How are we going to get through 3 hours of schooling? And so I want to address like the amount of time that we need to be doing schooling. There's obviously a progression, like very different expectations for little kindergartners than I'm expecting of my grade 12 student this year. She's pretty much going to be doing a 9 to 5 job. She's going to be working from 9 in the morning. She'll probably finish her school around 4 or 5 o'clock. That's expected at that high school level. But in our kindergarten days, half an hour a day. That's what we were doing. Now, quantify this. Let's qualify this. That's our formal sit down and learn time. That is us learning how to sit down and learn. Little 5-year-olds, they're not ready to sit still very much, and that's okay because that's how God made them. That's how they are meant to be. So if we can't sit still for 5 minutes, then that is the lesson. The lesson is how to sit still for a few minutes. We want our kids to be able to pay attention, to be obedient, to be able to stick to a task as long as they need to be able to engage and to be able to understand and think through them, have those focusing skills. So those are the things that we're learning when we can't sit for 5 minutes. But in kindergarten, we can get through the academic pieces that we need to do in about half an hour, that being those reading, writing, and arithmetic. If you are formally pursuing things like science and history and geography and art and music, stuff like that, yep, that's extra. So call it your school time or don't call it your school time. But the pieces that we need to do can be done in half an hour to an hour in kindergarten. An hour or so in grade 1. An hour and a half, 2 hours in grade 2 and 3, grade 4. In a Charlotte Mason style education, students were always done before lunchtime if they were in the elementary grades. And for the most part, that's fairly reasonable. Now, if you have like a box curriculum that sort of assigns different things, maybe you're watching videos and stuff, that will flesh out the day, it'll fill it out more. And there are curriculums that will have our students working from 9 until 3-ish, kind of like a regular school schedule. But when you think of those core things, what our kids most need, that time expands over time. So it's not unusual for a student to keep up with where their public schooled counterparts are by doing half an hour in kindergarten, an hour in grade 1, about 2 hours in grade 3, 4, finished by lunch before 8th grade, and to be doing more of a full day in their high school years. There was actually a study that came out with HSLDA, which is the Homeschool Legal Defense Association in the U.S. In the U.S., they did this study because there's many states where parents have to report what they're doing. If you want to homeschool your children, you got to be telling me what they're doing from 9 till 3 to be learning. And these moms and dads were saying, we don't need to sit down with these kids for 6 hours a day. That's not appropriate. So what they looked at was, and I'll try and condense this, and the numbers I'm going to round off, but essentially what they studied and found was the typical public school student went from 9 till 3:30 to school, and if you take out lunches and recesses, maybe that's like not 6.5 hours, like maybe 5 hours that you're sitting in a classroom. Those kids that are sitting 5 hours in a classroom, they said, how much time are they doing learning activities? Those times when we're like listening to the teacher, responding, doing some work, doing a test, interacting, creating a project, reading, doing all those kinds of things. They said about half of that time. The other half of the time, they're playing and interacting, they're waiting for someone, they're watching their peers doing things, and so on. So about half of the time in the classroom, maybe 2.5 hours out of that 6.5 hour day, is engaged in learning activities. And then what they did was they looked at, and this was, they were looking at grade 3 and 4 students. Then they said, how much time is a homeschooled student, an average homeschool student, spending to achieve the same outcomes? And they found that the average homeschooled student was spending about an hour and a half doing those same learning activities, accomplishing the same learning activities. So that's for a grade 3 and 4 student, about an hour and a half to keep up with what their public school counterparts are doing. So put your children on that spectrum and say, like, maybe you have a 5-year-old that's really ready to sit down and they love doing this, they love pumping stuff out, they concentrate, they love doing the projects, they love engaging. Then do an hour and a half, whatever works. But don't feel like you have to do that. What our goal is to see our kids make progress, right? We want to see them make progress in their attention and their ability to sit, as well as the content of what they're learning. So keep that in mind as you plan. And thank you, Jennifer, for contributing here again. Co-ops. As my children are still young, I'm wondering what's an ideal amount of time for co-ops at this age, or should we just focus on organizing weekly playdates and meetups at the playground? Such a good question. Co-ops are really a very, it's a very personal thing. I know families, and I remember from my children's younger years, a family locally that had 5 children doing 5 different activities 5 days a week. They were doing everything. They were doing gymnastics and soccer and basketball and guitar lessons and piano lessons and synchronized swimming and horseback riding. They were doing everything, and they were doing all the co-ops, and that suited their family. To me, it makes my head spin just thinking of it. Other families I know are like, it's just far too much for us to go out in a day or out in a week, every week, to the same activity over and over again. We'd rather just find a field trip when it suits us, or know that we're not ready to commit to these things because the baby is too small or whatever. So find yourself on the spectrum. Know that some people, we've all heard, like, homeschoolers are weird. Some people homeschool because they're weird. Some people are weird because they homeschool. And likewise, in terms of our socialization, if homeschooling is what gives you peace, because you don't have to be doing the rat race, you don't have to join all the activities. What's reasonable is get out as much as is going to keep you guys healthy, relationally supported. I don't think that anybody should homeschool in a void. And so even the most introverted family needs some of those other families to support. And there's been times in our homeschooling life where it was just those things. Like we would invite somebody over once a week because we only had one car and my hubby needed it for going to work. And I didn't have the capacity to be driving him to work so that we could go to all the activities and so on. So we didn't go to all the places, but we invited people over. And we invited the same people over week after week sometimes, and other times in our homeschool life, we would invite different people every week so that we could just be sociable. And then we'd walk downtown, and it was very lovely. When they were little, we could walk to the library and to the bakery and to the post office and just do all of our little things that way. On the other hand, there's been times when we joined a formal co-op, and it's been fantastic for socializing, for hanging out with lots of people, for having the noise and the buzz and the lessons that we wouldn't have thought of doing otherwise. My kids did a handbell choir at one point. On the other hand, that started to tire me out as a mom. Some moms love that stuff, and I felt like, it was extra lessons. Like, I got to do the things that we got to do during the week, and we also have to prepare for the contribution that I had to make. So decide what works for you. there is no ideal. The ideal is what's going to keep you healthy and socialized, getting the support that you need as a mom, and your kids the time to play and to do activities. If you guys never join a co-op, you can still be wholesome people. If you join 3 co-ops in the year and you're doing 3 co-ops, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, if you can still get in those core pieces, the reading, writing, and arithmetic, relationships and routines, then in the K to 8 years, that's what you need, right? In the high school years, we're going to get a little more formal about making sure that we cover specific sciences and so on. But find that, I can't answer that for you, except that yes, be sociable, find your tribe, but you don't have to do it all. And weekly play dates are so fun. That's one of the things that we learned actually early on, was meet up with somebody at a park, see whether we have things in common. There's been times when, I kind of left my house open, come on over, bring the friends and so on. And there was times when my kids would get hurt, or kids were being too rough, or parents were having different expectations of their children. Things would get broken in the house or something, like, because we didn't have the same kind of expectations with our kids. So having those neutral places, like going to a park, is a great place to get to know people. Just my 2 cents. Leah, thanks for joining me. Let's chat. You're nearby in Ontario, in Newmarket too, so come on by the store if you have a chance. And you're planning on starting this year. Yay, exciting. 8 and 11-year-old children, and I'm not sure what level they're at academically, or where I should start each child. How can I figure out their current level and choose the right curriculum for them? Fantastic question. Because as homeschoolers, we're not so concerned with their grade level as with their progress. Are they behind? Are they ahead? Great. What we want to see is children who can learn and make progress. So I don't really care whether your 8-year-old is learning at the level of a 12-year-old or at the level of a 6-year-old, as long as they are learning and growing. So first of all, let's identify, are there some challenges? Are there things that went really well in school, and things that you're like, hey, we're homeschooling because we need to dig in and do better at this and get more supports for this? Identify those. So if you have like any specific identified learning challenges, then those will be a part of how we plan. Because those things help us to know, hey, this kid's going to do better with some hands-on learning. This kid's going to do better with stuff read to them. This kid's going to do better with videos. This kid's going to do better with something that's very step-by-step and gives them the time to practice. Or this kid's going to do better with something that's kind of an overview, because they go quickly through things and they don't want to be bogged down. So keep those things that you know about your kids in mind. Now, when you're choosing homeschooled curriculums, though, or homeschool curriculums, though, keep in mind they're not made like public school curriculums. It's not made all the kids who are this age are supposed to fit into this box. There are some that are like that. For the most part, though, there's going to be placement tests for math and language arts, especially. Now, I've talked about math and language arts and all the other things, and I should differentiate that. I would talk kind of call them like the disciplinary skills versus the discretionary skills. Disciplinary skills are the ones where we need to build skill upon skill, where we need to build those muscles by repetitive use, where we have to learn one thing before we can go on to the other. Like, you need to learn how to add before you can multiply. You need to know how to add and multiply before you can work on fractions, and you need to know all that before you can do algebra. Right? So we have to do these in order. And we can't say to the kids, hey, everybody's going to do grade 6 math this year, and next year we'll do grade 3 math. Whereas and we have to do that with like learning to read, with math. There's other things like playing the piano. You can't get good at playing the piano by just showing up for the recital. Sidney Crosby didn't get good at hockey by just showing up for the games, right? So we have to do this by repeated practice and building those muscles. On the other hand, the discretionary skills, things like science, history, geography. If you say, hey, these kids are going to stay home this year, we're going to homeschool, we're going to learn about volcanoes and about building bridges and the physics of bridges for science this year. And then you say, hey, next year they're going to be going to school, things change, we're ready to go back to public school or private school. And lo and behold, all the kids in the public school learned about astronomy, and about plants last year. Are your kids behind? They're not. Because next year, when they go into school, everybody's going to be studying mammals and the respiratory system. So it's very topical. So these discretionary things like science and history and geography and art and phys ed and all the other things, not all of them, but most of the other things, are things where we can choose the content. We can choose how much time we spend. We can choose the mode, like, are you going to read books, or are you going to do workbooks, are you going to do projects, are you going to go on the field trips? So when you're choosing your curriculum, the math and the language arts usually are easiest to look at the materials, find the materials that have the qualities that you want. I want colorful pages. This kid needs extra practice. That one wants some videos. It would really help if there was something that automatically marked this. I want something where we can just read a lot and discuss it. Like, decide on those pieces and then find the curriculum that you're going to do that with. And we can help you to sort of identify that. And then use the placement tests to decide, are we at level 3, 4, 5, A, B, C, whatever. A lot of homeschooled curriculums don't even have grades on them. So you would do that placement test for those things that have a disciplinary skill where we have to build skill upon skill. Whereas there's a lot of great curriculums out there for science where you can do that with both of the kids together. Lightens your load as a mom, gives us shared experiences, lightens the budget because you don't have to buy everybody a separate textbook and so on. And keeps you from having to feel like, hey, we have to check off 180 days of science and so on. Now, if that suits you, on the other hand, we've got that stuff. We've got the packages where you can say, here's grade 4 and here's grade 6 or whatever. But know that what I'd start with is, let's talk about the qualities of a curriculum that will work for you. Do placement tests for your math and language arts. And then find the topics and the content that works for you for those other skills, and decide, are we going to do those together or separately, and we can flex them for how the kids can use them. Know that homeschooled materials are made very differently than public school materials. So what you've seen your kids use in the classroom, like the textbooks or the sheets that come from their teachers, they rely on a teacher to deliver content. So teacher stands at the front and says, this is how you do A, B, and C. Here's some examples, example, try it out. You could come and stand at the board and do this, or here's some things that you're going to do. And then you take home your homework, which might be that text to read or that assignment to do. Whereas our homeschooled materials generally come with a book for the student to read and learn from, and we as parents support them by helping to read if they need it, or guiding them and making sure that they're working through it at a good pace. Or it might come with a teacher guide that's fully scripted for you as a mom. Those are the kinds of things, like it's different than public school materials. So I hope that helps. Tell me if that answers those questions, or if you have some more. We are getting towards the end of our time, and I don't want to keep you longer than you need to, because I could just chatter on. And I love doing these one-on-ones. I would so much rather have somebody to chat with right here in front of me instead of staring into a camera, though I can see there's a number of you here with us, and thank you for joining me today. Do let me know if you have any other questions before I let you go for the day, but know that we are here. It's August, so it's a busy time. I'm going to be taking a couple of days to spend some time with my family, because now my kids are old and they're scattered all across the countryside, and so I'm going to have some time with all my kids and grandkids home for the next 2 days. But our team is here, and they are here late, and they are here early, and they're keeping up with your orders. We tend to be shipping stuff same day or next day right now. We do have a couple of vendors that are slow in fulfilling things, so there are a couple of orders that are needing to sit for a bit. But otherwise, our team is here, and I'm going to be back in a couple of days, and I'm still doing consultations, and our other team members here at the store are doing consultations, and we just love making sure that you are ready for a successful year. that you are ready for all the Lord all that the Lord is bringing for you this year. Whether you have kids with learning challenges, whether you are just starting out, whether this is going to be the best year because you guys are traveling or experiencing new things, or you've got some resource or some project or something that is exciting and it's going to really reinvigorate or give real life to your education. So wherever you guys are at, whether homeschooling is for now or for forever, know that we're just on your team. We just want to be there, supporting you, cheering for you, and making sure you get the right resources. So if I don't see another question or two in the next little bit, I will thank you for joining me, and I will let you guys go. We are doing another Q&A, I believe on the 20th, and that one's going to be focused specifically on homeschooling through the high school years. Some things that are big ideas that we gotta go through in thinking of the high school years, and other things that are just, you know what, nothing changes. You're homeschooling an older student. So we'll talk through homeschooling through the high school years, and we have another Q&A later on at the beginning of September. So if that can be of help to you, or if you want to share that with some friends who it could be helpful to, then we'd be happy to help you with that. So thanks for joining me today, and let us know if we can be any help to you otherwise. Take care, guys. Oh, Nicole, yes. Will there be another sale anytime soon? We're not going to be able to have any free ship sales before the back to school season is done. Right now we've got about 25 people running around the store at highest speed that they can. And so just in terms of our capacity and our vendors' capacity to fulfill things, we're not going to be able to do any free ship events before then. Otherwise, any other sales that we pass on will be just the ones that we get directly from our vendors, because as a small independent bookstore and with many independent vendors, our pricing is very much controlled by them. We do our best to keep things as low as possible, and to make sure that pricing is really tight, because we're homeschoolers as well. So any sales that we have will be just direct flow throughs, and I don't see anything coming down the pipeline from them right now because it's the back to school season and they're all very busy. So I don't have anything coming up, at least until the end of September, that I know of. So I hope that helps. All right, I'm going to let y'all go, and you know how to get a hold of us. Take care, guys.